This film is about mothers and babies and the value of carefully observing the relationship which develops between a newborn baby and the person who mothers him. It aims to encourage more people to study the details and the quality of the developing relationships of the mothers and babies with whom they are in contact. The film seeks to illustrate the value of closely observing mother-child interaction by concentrating on one aspect of the baby's behavior. That is, what babies do with their eyes when they are tended and fed. The baby that we are watching is 4 days old. As the commentary continues, we shall watch him at several feed and play times during the first weeks of his life. As he becomes more awake, we can see how he uses his eyes. We shall be using the natural history approach to the study of child development, watching the infant in his natural habitat while interfering as little as possible with the situation which we are observing. The beauty of this approach is that we need no complicated apparatus or laboratory, or even any special skill or training beyond the capacity to sit quietly and faithfully observe without intruding into the situation. There is no observable tie between a newborn infant and any specific mother figure, but we know that long before the age of 2, the healthy child will have developed a very strong tie with his mother. Watching carefully from the first days, we may be able to see some of the details of the way in which this developing bond with the mother is fashioned. And we may be able to observe the way in which the child puts out feelers towards the mother and how these in turn strengthen the mother's tie to the child. It is critically important to the welfare services that as many people as possible should have an understanding of the emotional and physical needs of infants, and indeed of mothers. Those who are concerned with the decisions about foster placements, residential nurseries, adoption practices, and the care of infants in hospitals carry a heavy responsibility. People who have the delicate task of advising mothers on the care of their babies have great need of a sensitive and intimate knowledge of what really happens between mothers and babies. You will remember that the baby whom we are watching was only 4 days old when he was first seen on the film. I think you will have been struck by the way in which this young infant has tended to swing his eyes onto his mother's face when he begins to feed. By the age of 7, this tendency of 7 days, this tendency has become very obvious. This is a common phenomenon which we can observe in nearly all infants at some time during the first weeks of life. We shall now see film of a number of babies between the ages of 2 and 8 weeks who tend to stare very fixedly at their mothers while they are being fed. These infants look very little at the mothers when they are not feeding, even when the mothers try quite strenuously to engage their attention by social overtures. And so it is even more striking that they appear to stare so fixedly, though vacantly, at their mothers during their feeds. Not all babies gaze so constantly at their mothers as the infant shown in this film, but you will find that the persistence and reinforcement of the infant's tendency to direct his eyes at his mother's eyes during feeding seems to depend largely on the extent to which the mothering figure continues to look back at the infant. If she does this, there is mutual reinforcement, and it may happen, as in the babies illustrated here, that the babies come to stare at the mother for nearly all the time that they are actually feeding from either a bottle or the breast. In the course of this film, there are moments when it can be seen that the turning away of the mother's eyes leads to the infant gazing elsewhere. These infants would stare with equal constancy at the eyes of a nurse or any other person who gave them a feed during the first 8 weeks of life, as long as the person feeding looked back at the baby. Although infants' behavior varies greatly from one infant to another, you will find that all young infants hold their eyes still while they are sucking successfully. You can see that this baby is looking at his mother out of the corner of his eyes. Study of the behavior of young infants may help us to understand the needs of infants and give us a greater opportunity to provide for them in the way most likely to promote their physical and mental health. Study of young infants may also provide us with clues to the origin of emotional disturbance in later childhood and adult life. While observing the subtleties of interaction between mothers and babies with whom we are in contact, we may find that a particular nursing couple is in difficulty. We may then be able to help the mother to overcome the difficulties which are interfering with her mothering of her baby, and in this way make a major contribution to the future emotional health and happiness of the mother and baby. In watching mother and baby together, we can explore the wisdom of Dr. Winnicott's remark that there is no such thing as a baby, there are only mothers and babies. Young babies do not seem to stare at the mother while feeding from a spoon. Even if they are at the time, most confirmed lookers at mother while sucking. This 7-week-old boy's eyes do not swing up onto the mother's eyes until he is sucking successfully from the breast. He maintains visual contact with his mother while sucking, but when she sits him up and talks to him, you will see that visual contact is interrupted until he is offered the breast again. You have probably noticed subtle differences between patterns of mothering and the infant's response in the nursing couples we have seen. The next baby you will see shows behavior markedly different from the other babies we have seen, and I think you will agree that this last nursing couple is in trouble. The sadness for this couple is that both are tending in desperation to look elsewhere, the mother for a responsive baby and the baby for a different mothering figure. We could see how the mother had to subdue the baby's hands before she could get the bottle into his mouth. The fact that he doesn't look much at his mother is not really unusual. What is interesting is that he stared solidly to the eyes of the observer for most of the time, as can be seen in the film. He wasn't simply staring at the camera. The camera was put up to record the fact that he was staring at the observer. This is a mother who, in a general discussion before the film was contemplated, said sadly, "But my baby never looks at me." These are typical scenes from the nursing couple, taken from the 3rd to the 6th weeks. We can see the profound effect on the mother of the baby's avoidance of her. She turns finally to wave at another infant.